Hey, welcome back.
Thank you very much. A long trip. Uh,
Where were you?
I was in Toronto, New York, Israel.
Yeah, you told me that's true.
Yeah,
So you enjoy the snow.
I didn't enjoy the snow at all.
Oh,
Something crazy. But I came here to a fire, so I don't know which one's
yes,
better.
yes. You're not affected in your area.
Not yet.
No, I don't think it
I
will.
don't think it's going to happen here. But the
But
smoke
it's
is.
still not even half contained, the one in
In
Pacific
Palisades.
Palisades.
Terrible.
Terrible, terrible. I mean, I saw a picture just now. It's total desolation. That like there's nothing left. Nothing.
Yeah,
Sometimes you see when there's a big fire that one house here and there is spared. Nothing. 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 Nothing.
unfortunately, that's what fire can do.
Terrible. Oh shit.
Buenas, good luck.
Gizmo, ¿cómo está?
Bien, ya regresé, fui a Guatemala. That's why
Ah,
I didn't
sí.
get, yeah, that's why I didn't get to join you guys.
Yeah. ¿Cómo le fue? ¿Bien?
Baruch Hashem, fui a las tumbas de mi
George, you're okay
familia.
where you are?
Yeah, we are, but I mean, so many of our friends. I mean, today I was at shul at Chabad, and it was a
Yeah.
joint Chabad with all of the people from the Palisades.
Oh
Four or
my God.
five, oh yeah, 4 or 5 of the families lost everything. Very depressing. Very
Do they have
depressing.
insurance? I heard many people didn't even have insurance anymore.
You know what, Harold? People have
Yeah.
insurance, but not enough. Many of
Yeah.
them are being insured by the state, and the
Right.
state
That's not enough.
only that's like maybe if you're lucky have, and that's
Yeah.
terrible.
Whoa.
Terrible.
Shavuot
Yeah.
tov.
Shavua tov.
Harold, everything calm there?
Yeah. It's very nice. Fresh air.
Where are you?
Well, some winds.
Rancho Mirage.
Oh,
It's
that's
a little
why.
windy. It is a little windy. Yeah.
I was in the valley. The air quality was beautiful. I mean, but you could see the smoke over by the Pacific Palisades in the sky. But
Uh-huh.
Where in the valley were you, Ernie?
Valley Village, Sharet Tzedek. My daughter lives there.
Oh, that's great. You know,
Yeah.
that's where I live. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
When I
Right.
was going to Rambam, that's where I was. I used to drive in every day to Rambam.
Wow.
From Rambam, and you
Rambam.
davened at Sharet Tzedek with Rabbi
Of
Sugarman.
course. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the guy who married us.
Marvin Sugarman was my 5th and 6th grade Gemara Rebbe at Hillel. I learned Elam Mitzias and Hamafkid with Rabbi Grumman, 5th and 6th grade. He
You
was
remembered it.
Rabbi Sugarman. He was the assistant rabbi to Rabbi Dolgan.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember that.
He got the job at Sharet Tzedek.
We can talk for a long time about all that stuff.
Yeah. So we're on Chaf Hey 25. So when Rabbi Yehuda said, when he defined a case in a Mishnah, and he said, Amasai, when Obamedvar, remember what case we're talking about, he's not coming to argue with the Chacham. Eino el lefarish divrei Chacham. It's not that he has a difference, is explaining a little bit more the shita of the Chachamim. But Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Amasai is lefarish. But he agrees. But by Medvar Memorim is lachla. But this Mishnah used the term Amasai. Comes out the Kula Alma Amasai is lefarish. So Rabbi Yehuda is no different than the Tanakama. So the Gemara says, Gavra, Karamis, you're asking a stira between two different Amoyroim? Mar Savar Pligi. Rami Bar Chama holds that Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim argue And Umar Sover that ain't pligi, that they're no pligi, that they're not arguing. And the low pligi ben sheyesh lo umnis, we're talking about a gambler who is disqualified from serving as an aide. So the Gemara says, "V'lo pligi." Do they not argue? There's a brisa that says, "Bein sheyesh lo umnis shalohu," whether or not he has a profession other than gambling. Bein she'ein lo umnis elahu, or he only has this as a profession. Pasul. So there is one of the Mandarin who says by the act that he does gambling of any kind, even if he has another profession, apostles him. So the Gemara explains that brisa is not like the Chachamim of our Mishnah. Hagi Rav Yehuda Mishum Rav Tarfon. It's a whole different Tana. The Tanya. Rav Yehuda Oimer Mishum Rav Tarfon. Two people are arguing. And one of them says, you know, if I'm not correct, I'm going to become a Nazir. And each one says that. So la'olam ein echad mehem Nazir. Neither of them become a Nazir. Why? Lefi shelo nitna nazirus ela lahafla. When you say already Nazir, it has to be very clear. It can't be if, maybe, yes, if this works, I'll be a Nazir. If this works, it doesn't matter. That doesn't work. Nazirus is only when it's clear. No. Even by kinyonim, like when somebody gambles, the kinyon has to be clear. And when you gamble, you're playing dice. They don't know for sure they're going to win, they're not going to win. Each one thinks they're going to win. So this is the Tana that holds it's not smachta. And it's not a real kinyan, and a smachta is not koine. And therefore, if one guy is winning, he's really a gazlan. He's really taking money that doesn't belong to him. And that's why such a person cannot be trusted as an aide or as a dayan. The other example of apostle eidus was malve beribis, somebody who loans money for interest. And Amar Rav loive beribis also postulates. How about this? The person who pays interest, the person who borrows the money and agrees to pay interest, he's also posel le'edus. He's a partner in the Aveira of loive beribis. You can't have a malva without a love. Says Rava, the love is also posel le'edus. For the Gemara, the anantnan malva beribis. Our Mishnah says only the lender. Doesn't says the loan. Milva haba beribis, meaning the Gemara explains it means a loan that occurred with interest, and it's so therefore both sides. Allah and the Shulchan Aruch is both are possible. So both a borrower and a lender, beribis, are postulatus. The Gemara tells a story. Barbinitus asadi beitrei sadi. Barbinitus was a person that two Eidim testified against him. Chad amar kamedidi oizef beribisa. One witness said, I saw this guy borrow money and he paid interest. The chad amar lididi was fi beribsa. The other aide says, he loaned me money beribis. So he has two eidim. They tell a different story, but both stories lead to the fact that he either lent money beribis or he borrowed money beribis. So pasle Rava lebarbenitus. So Rava invalidated him for eidus and for dayonis. Now, Rava do amar loive beribis pasle eidus. How could this be? Rava is the one who said that even somebody who borrows and pays interest, he's puzzled. And therefore, v'havale Rasha, so he's violating the rule. He's a Vatorah Omer al Tashas Rasha aid. So how could we take one of these Eidim, accept his testimony? He can't be a witness. So how could Rav Apostle bar binutis? So very interesting answer. Rav al-Tamei, the Amar of Adam Koravetzel Atzmo, Veinodam Meshiv Atzmo Rosh. It's a little bit like self-incrimination. Halacha doesn't allow a person to make himself a Rasha. So we accept his testimony about the other guy. But regarding himself, he's a Karuv to himself, and we reject. He can't make himself a Rasha. And therefore the Edus is accepted. And that's the halacha. Amar Rava. Excuse me. Hahuta bacha, die stakich danach wat trefes metusayade. There was a shoichet who sold meat and was found to be treif. He didn't want to lose money. He didn't announce that this piece of treif. Pasli Rav Nachman and Va'avre. Rav Nachman said he cannot serve as an aide, and we remove him from his position as a shoichet. Also Rav Mazeh V'Tofre. He went and he grew his hair long and his nails long. He was trying to become a Baal Tshuva. That's what people did. They grew their hair long, they grew their nails long. They didn't care about their personal appearance. They were trying to be a Baal Tshuva. Sova Rav Nachman Lachshure. Rav Nachman saw this, and they wanted to bring him back as the shoichet. He's a Baal Tshuva. What's wrong? He's tricking us. He's only showing us this because he wants to get his job back. And he's not really about Tshuva Amiti. Okay, what should he do to prove to us that he's a Chayzer B'Tshuva? It's the way Rav Idi Baravin, the Amar Rav Idi Baravin, HaChoshud ala Treifus. A butcher or a shoichet, unfortunately, we in Los Angeles have experience with this, who were found to sell treif meat. Ein lo takana ad she'elech l'makom she'en makir moso. First, he has to go to a new city where people don't know him. V'yachzer aveda b'dover. We see that he found a lost object, which was worth a lot of money, and he returned it. So we see l'shem mitzvah, he was willing to lose money. Could have kept it, but he didn't. Or he shechts personally for himself, and there's a very expensive filet mignon that he got rid of because it was treif. So we see that he's a mamish Baal Tshuva, and we know that he's not tricking us. Okay. Mafricha yoinim. We didn't know what that means. The Mishnah said mafricha yoinim are posulatus. My mafricha yoinim. Hacha targuma. People who raced birds. I tagdume yoincha liyoin. Is your bird going to get there faster than me? So it's a race, and they're betting on it. Rav Chama bar Oishea Omar Eire. He teaches his birds how to attract other birds to come to him. So he has a larger flock, where in the end he's going to take birds that don't belong to him. So Manda Amar Itagdime Yonach Liyoyiv in my time Lo Amar Eire. The one who said that it's a bird race, why didn't he learn that it's this guy who's trapping other birds? Why not? It's not real gazelle. The owner of a pigeon is not really the owner. They grow by themselves and they fly to a person's home. It's not that clear that it's got pure ownership by somebody. So you're not mamish a gazlan. So that's why he said, I hold like the shita that it's a bird race. The one who says that he trains his bird to capture other birds, why doesn't he learn Pashat Pshat that it means a race? Armelachot, that's not a chiddush. Hainu mesachik bekubia. We already learned somebody who gambles is puzzle. So a bird race, and you put money on it, that's also a gamble. You don't know who's going to win, really. So we don't need that. So we use the other thing as the reason. Okay. The idich, what does the other guy say who does say, we've already learned in the Masachet Pekubia, Tana, toile b'das atzmo, v'tana toile b'das yoinai. Meaning, gambling, you're doing it yourself. Gambling with a bird, it's your bird, it's not yourself. So we have to be told in both cases. Utsricha. We need both cases. The tana toile b'das atzmo. When you gamble with dice, he's not, he thinks he's going to win, not for sure. He thinks he's a good gambler. He knows how to count cards. He knows how to, he looks at the dice. He knows how they fall. I'm going to win. He's sure. So it's not, you might think that it's not an asmachta, and it is koine. I'm not. You don't know what the bird. How do you know the bird's going to fly fast? Not going to fly fast? What do you know? On the other hand, if you only learn the case about the bird race, maybe the Omer ben Nakshitaya Milsa, he's a very good bird trainer. He knows how to incite them. I know better how to train these birds than this other guy. But regarding gambling, that's pure muzzle. That doesn't involve training or intelligence. So tzricha needed to be told the case in both cases. Okay. Mesa. We ask a kasha. A mesachik bekubia. What is a mesachik bekubia? Elu ena mesachikim bispisim. These are marble dice. V'lo bispispis bilvad amru. They would use walnut shells and pomegranate, either shells or seeds. There was also some kind of game of chance. They're also puzzle, like Masachik Bekubia. When do you know that they've become a Baal Tshuva and then you can use them as an aid? You see them break their dice. Even to play this game backgammon without money, lo avdi, they stay away from it completely, even though there's no gambling anymore. What about malva beribis? Loaning with interest. They're both possible. When do we know that they become a Baal Tshuva? A guy who was in business to loan money, he had all these pre-written stories. He tears them all up, and it's valuable, those stories. He had a sofer write them. And even l'nochri lo musfi, even to a goy, he doesn't loan money. Even though technically you're allowed to loan a non-Jew money by interest. That's why religious Jews, the Rothschilds, the religious Jews had, started banking business. It was permitted in the Middle Ages. The protected Jews, the court Jews, were the ones who financed the dukes, the princes. When you go to Poland and you go to Czechoslovakia, all that, you see that where the Jews lived wasn't just a ghetto; it was right next to the duke's house. They were his Jews. They were court Jews, and he protected them because they provided them with financing for their armies. And you always have to question is, why? So Jews had families all over the place. And in different countries, meaning they had access to capital. perhaps more, you have to ask the question, why did Jews have capital that they could loan money? So the big families all over the world, in the Middle East, here and there, people traveled. When a regular farmer in the middle of France or in Bohemia, they worked the land, they probably didn't have the access to capital that perhaps Jews who were well-connected had access to capital. They weren't allowed to do any other business. You couldn't go to medical school. You weren't allowed to university. You were not allowed to farm land until the civil rights were given in the 1800s. So, they were sort of forced into this. And the Goyim, the clergy knew what they were doing, because when you're the lender, people hate you. So it led to animosity towards Jews, because they were the big bad wolf who would come to take your property if you didn't pay your loan. They also were made moichsim. They were made, tax collectors. When you crossed a bridge, you had to pay a tax to the local prince, because he paid the money for the infrastructure, but he charged the people taxes. So again, they put the Jewish people into very difficult positions where the people would hate them. So, pogrom, why are they doing a pogrom against these It was oftentimes financial animosity that drove it. It wasn't just that the clergy whipped them up in a sermon that Sunday. They're Christ killers. No, I saw that at firsthand when I traveled to Poland with my son in his year after Israel. So we went to this little town of Baich. David Tumim's uncle, some of us know David Tumim, his uncle was the son of the Baicher Rav, and he came back with us to Baich. And all the homes in the center of town, that's where the Jews lived. The Goyim lived in the outskirts, the Bauern, they were farmers and very poor. And of course, after the deportations, Baich was a little town in Galicia. They were all deported. After the deportation, all the Goyim that lived in those farms came and took over the houses in the center of town. I remember we knocked on a door. The guy answered, but you could see him, he was terrified, because this Baicher guy, Tumen's uncle, remembered that that's the house that the family lived in. He just wanted to see it. Anyways, we got a little on a tangent. Even l'nochri lo musfi. So to show that you're a Baal Tshuva, you didn't even loan to a goy, even though you're allowed to do it. Okay. Umafricha yoinim, elu shemamin yoinim. They train these birds. They make them upset, and they fight like cockfights. That's what Rashi says. Cockfights, rooster fights. And people would bet which rooster is going to win. It's not just pigeons or doves. Any animal that they would cause to fight with each other for make money, that's considered mafricha yoin. Emasai chazarosum. When? How do you know that you're about tshuva? Mishiyishperu as pygmeia. The pygmeia looked like it was a stage. It was the stage that they would stage these fights for the animals. And they would break them, so they're out of business. They don't even do these games in the desert where there are no people. Then the Mishnah said, Sochrei Shvius, Eilein Shenoisim V'Noisim B'Perish Shvius. Fruit that grows during Shemitah, you're not supposed to do business with it. You're supposed to leave it in skirt. Whoever wants can come and take it. But you have these people who gathered it and sold it. So again, you see, it's a desire for money to do it in a corrupt way that invalidates you as an aid and as a dayan. Emasai chazarasum, How do you know that they became a Baal Tshuva? Mishtagiyah Shvias Acheres V'yibadlu. You have to wait until the next Shemitah, and they stay away from Perush Shvias. One of Nehemiah, Lo Chazaras Dvarim Bilvad Amru. It's not enough that I say, oh, I regret what I did. Ela Chazaras Mamoy. It's got to be return of money itself. Ketzad. Oimer ani ploni bar ploni. Kinasti Mosayin Zuz B'Perush Shvias. Listen what he has to do. He said, I made $200 profit selling Perush Shvias in that year. I'm giving away all of that money to poor people. Okay. So this Baraisa was brought as a mesfei. Ktani mias behema. The Baraisa said it's not just birds, but even an animal, one against another. Bishmal manda omar tagdime yoni leyoyin. The one who said that mafricha yoni means a bird race. Well, so you have a horse race. I didn't call it behema. So you make competition between animals. Who's faster? Elaman domer erev. That your bird convinced other birds to come to your house. So behema basachi. How can how can an animal do that to seduce other animals to come and join his flock? What's his in? Shor habor, like a wild ox. He's not really completely domesticated, but they can convince their fellow ox to come to their house. Okay. And this is according to the Shita that the Shor habor is a behema, because we have a machlokes. Shor habor min behema, Rabbi Yossi Omer min chaya. Because it said behema, but I think Bryce also said chaya and behema. Okay. Tana. Hoisifu aleihen. Another Mishnah added to the list of the people who are invalid as edim, hagazlonin v'hachamsonin. Now, what are these things? Gazlan is deraisahu. We know he's puzzled because it says, don't take a Russia as an aid. Lo nitzracha ella mitzias choyre shoyte v'kot. Somebody stole something from a child or a crazy person or a deaf mute who found something. Minat Torah, since they don't have das, they don't have a kinyan. So if you take something from them, it's not really a geza. Minat Torah. So Meikara Savar Mitzias Chersher is gotten Loshchich. Why should we be goyzer there? This is something that's not very common. Or Inami Sholem Ba'alma. It's not really Zayla, it's just we want peace between people. Even the Chazal, the Sof Mamanu, the Koshakli. They're grabbing money from these people, and it's Mamish Gazlanus, says Paslina Rabbanon. So the Chacham said he's puzzled. Now, what about the Chamsonim? A Chamson is somebody who forces a vendor to sell something to you. You pay money, but you forced him. The guy didn't want to sell it to you, and you twisted his arm, and you forced him to sell. That's a Chamson. Now, what's the Havimina? Initially, they didn't think to include them, and later on they include Karasover. He's paying money. Maybe we shouldn't puzzle them. Even the chazal, but eventually they were doing this all the time. They made a gzeira that they're also puzzled. Okay. Tana oida shepherds who were shepherding animals, since occasionally they would take them to pasture through their neighbors' fields. They're like gazlonim. And hagaboim. We talked about those that were tax collectors for the king. And they take more than what they're supposed to. Vehamoichsin. These were like people collecting on the road, toll collectors. Again, the infrastructure was built by the local authorities, and there were tolls to pay to travel on this bridge or on this road. Now, in the times of the Gemara, if you were in these professions, you were suspected of collecting money that didn't belong to you, so you couldn't be an aid. Now, Roy Mikar Sover Akroy Ba'almahu. Initially, people thought that the shepherds weren't. Occasionally, a behemoth would go to somebody. It's not that the shepherd wanted that, but even the chazuz would come a. No, they saw that the shepherds were taking them to other people's fields. Gazab Rabbanon. They puzzled them. What's about the Gaboin and the Moixin? Mikor Sover the Kitzlu Kashakli. Let's say the tax was 10%. Well, Dina de Malchusa Dina. You're supposed to pay the 10%. But initially, it was thought that the collectors were collecting exactly what was owed. They saw that the tax collectors were collecting more than what was owed to stick in their pocket, so they were puzzled. Amar Rava, Royasha Amru, when we said we invalidated a shepherd, Echad Roy Be'Medaka, Echad Roy Be'Megasa. It's sheep and goats, small animals. That's a Be'Medaka. And cattle and horses, that's a Be'Megasa. Either way, you're puzzled. Did Rav actually say this? Amar Rava, Roy Be'Medaka Be'Eretz Yisrael Psulim. If you sheep and goats, so they mamish destroy the way they eat the grass. They destroy the grass. It's mamish gazlonis and destruction of the land. B'chutz la'aretz ksherim. And in fact, if you were a shepherd in chutz la'aretz, where we don't care about the hashchasa, they're not puzzled. And roya behema gasa, like cows, they don't damage the ground. Afilu be'eretz Yisrael ksherim. So we answer Ahu b'migdolim. They raise their own animal. They're not just shepherds for other people, where people pay them an hourly rate to take the animals out to pasture. They're benefiting personally because they own the animal. And Hochanami Mistavra. And it makes sense because it says in another Mishnah, Nemonin alai shloisha roya boker, that if I say these three cattle watchers, I will believe them, and we say they could be dayanim. Now, my love, what are we believing them? Le'edis? What, for testimony? Lo, it's ledina. It's to be dayanim, because they can nami shloishas roya. But why did they say three cattle? You don't need two eidim. Ilaedis shloisha lamali. You only need two, not three. Elamai was saying ledina, that you were they're going to take them for dayanim. So my ear shloisha roy baker. Kol beit lasot lo kamiri dina nami. Any three balabatim that haven't studied choshen mishpat, what's the big chiddush of roy baker? So hachi kamer afilu hani deloshchichi biyishu. These roy baker, they didn't live in the city. They spent most of the time out in the fields, out in the city. They don't know business, and yet you can accept them as dayanim. It was a bigger chiddush. Rav Yehuda, stam roy apostle. If you meet a shepherd, you don't know his details. Stam, right? Stam roya, he's puzzle until you find evidence that he's kosher. But stam gaboy, one of these tax collectors, kosher. Avud Rav Zera, Ovid Gavisot Tleis Rishonim. The father of Zera was a tax collector for the king for 12 years. The governor of this territory, who's in charge of the collection of the taxes for the area that the father of Zera was dealing with, when the father of Zera, who's a tax collector, would see Chachamim around, and he knew that this governor was close by, he he would give them a hint. Lech ami baba chadrecha. Go, my people, go hide in your home. And the pasuk in Yeshaya says, "Who scored losecha batra," close the door behind you. Kimat regad yavor zam, until the poison passes. He wanted them to sort of stay out of sight so that this officer wouldn't see them, and possibly would maybe reduce the taxes of the city. Maybe it was done by head. Ki avachazi inshi demasa. When he saw the regular people, not the Tamei Chachamim, he would say, Reish Nahara Asalamasa, the governor has come to the town. Vayidin Nachas Abba Lepumbara Ubra Lepumaba. Now, the father's going to shecht, he's going to shecht the father because of the statement of the son, and the son because of the statements of the father. That was the signal to them to go hide, because the tax collector is here and they should hide. Okay. We'll stop here.